Hi! I'm Barb.
And I'm Alex.
And we're Enchanterium. In today's video, we are joining the annual Halloween mega collaboration. In our usual fashion, we are returning to the Dark Winx series, and by popular demand both from you to us and fans to the Netflix Fate series, we are making Flora, the guardian fairy of nature.
Last time, when we did Flora custom doll, we used Cleo the Nile as a base, and I was tempted to use her again, but the majority of our Winx villains are made out of Ever After High dolls, with the exception of Dark Layla. The best choice would be to customize a Melody Piper doll, but we only had one, and we already used it on Delightful's tropical collab doll, Sangria. So the second best choice is Rosabella Beauty, the daughter of Bella from Beauty and the Beast. She's one of my favorite Ever After High dolls and characters, so I'm both happy and nervous to start customizing her. Flora has a very interesting hair color. It's light brown with a cool tone, and it's not a color of hair we have in our house. At first I left the brown parts and went for a hunt. I found this yarn that could be a dark blonde, but the color doesn't work with the skin tone. This one is definitely too dark. After visiting 3 local haberdasheries, I found this combo, and I think it's a perfect set for Flora. So now I can remove her hair without any sentiment. I'm quickly preparing the head for further customization, but before that I want to find a good pair of wings for her. Since the Enchantix transformation, beautiful wings are essential for every Winx transformation, and what could better suit Flora than ball-jointed petal wings from Dragatar? They were left after we made Churro, an axolotl dragon we designed for Dragatar's Dragon Island challenge. I've stringed them with 2 additional pieces at the end and then wire inside for more stability. I thought that I'd make it as a proper ball-jointed piece and carved 2 holes in the back, one for each wing. It turned out they were designed to work with the horizontal base, and they can't hold the position when the base is vertical. I switched to a chunky wire and a thin elastic, and it's better, but still not enough. Also, the socket on this doll's back doesn't have the same texture as on the dragon's back that has a much better grip. I decided to put this problem aside for a few days, but now at least I know I definitely want to use these wings. Let's go back to her head. I had ambitions for 3D plants coming out of her body, so I stuck some wire in her cheek and forehead and started applying the clay. I quickly realized that it's ugly, and I gave up without even trying for the second time. Sometimes you have to follow the plan just to make sure it's a bad idea, and that's okay. Exploring possibilities is what I like about this hobby. I feel like I'm better at 2D things like painting rather than sculpting, so I'm still doing the plans around the eye, just without the 3rd dimension. All our villain dolls have angry brows, and this time I want to break the cycle. I want her face to say, "Oh, you poor little creature, I don't care." And I'm drawing her brows very straight. In the cartoon she has the most narrow eyes of the bunch, and I want to keep this feature but make it look more evil looking. Here you can see me testing how she looks with cat pupils, but later I changed them for round ones. To make her eye pop, I'm adding eyeliner and applying a white base first so the color doesn't get lost in the plants. I chose pink to match with her original magical transformation. Then it's time to enhance the colors with acrylic paints. I'm painting everything: eyes with green and white, lashes with black, adding individual hair to the brows and making the plants grow on her face. I added lashes facing down, but it made her eyes look closed, and she looks like she's falling asleep, and I don't want that. So I'm painting over them and adding a few lashes on the top lid. Then is my favorite part of the face-up, detailing everything with white paint. Adding white lashes, outlining the leaves, adding a waterline and catch lights. I think her skin needs a lot of sparkle, and I'm using rose gold Pearl powder on her right cheek and interference green on the parts covered with plants. And this is how she looks.
Are you a fairy turned to evil and want to cover your tracks online? No? Well, you should still use a VPN. Surfshark is an app and browser extension that allows you to cover up everything you do online. It acts like a magical shield that encrypts your information when connecting to the internet, so none of the evil forces can snoop on you. I've been traveling for work a lot lately, and I can safely connect to public Wi-Fis at the airports because Surfshark has my back. As a bonus, you can set your location back to home, so your accounts don't freak out and lock you out because of your unusual location. It's useful for fun stuff too. My recent obsession is mahjong, and I wanted to watch some anime to get more familiar with all of the yakus in the game. And guess what? Polish Netflix sucks and has no content about mahjong. Surfshark to the rescue. I connected to a Japanese server, which took literally 5 seconds. Refresh, and I can watch anime about mahjong to my heart's content. Protect your online activity and watch more anime by getting Surfshark via our link and get an amazing deal, 83% off and 3 extra months for free of Surfshark VPN. This is my plan for the outfit. You got it? Okay, great. I'm starting by making a half circle skirt, which is going to be tied in the waist and more of a train than a skirt. I'm cutting it out of this stretchy black net that seems to be never ending. That's what happens when the fabric stored minimum purchase is a whole meter. I measure the waist up to the doll, and because of my lousy cutting, the waist goes. The waist goes all the way around, and I wanted to end at the sides. I contemplated just folding it in and stitching it down this way, but then I decided to round the corners in the front and to gather the waist instead. I'm gonna attach this long thin ribbon in a second, but first I want to gather this so it's the most gathered in the middle. There's no point using the machine for this, so I'm whipping out my needle and thread and doing a quick running stitch along the edge. I tie it off after making sure the length is now correct. Then I just attach the ribbon going in the other direction and voila! I purposely cut the skirt longer to get that train effect, which will be the focal point of this doll's design. She can't have her butt out under this mesh, so I'm gonna make a mini skirt, and the cut is inspired by her first transformation. To make the pattern, I'm taping the doll after covering her with some cling film. Then I draw the design on the tape. The skirt will be made of 7 panels and have slits in the front and the back. I cut up the tape form into pieces and traced them to the paper. I cut them out of this shiny black synthetic fabric, but it sewed really bad, so I switched to cotton for the final piece. Just like I cut the tape form apart, I am sewing the pieces back together in order. I then press the seam allowances open so that I can hem the slits. I trimmed the seam allowance down with pinking shears, and I will top stitch the seam allowance with the slits while hemming at the same time. I can now hem the bottom sections and the waist. I'm not hemming the back sections just yet, as it's gonna be better to hem it after we sew the back together, which is now. Remember not to sew all the way up so the butt can get through. With that, the final hem can go on. We can now fit it on the doll and add a closure, and it looks awesome to me. Together with the train, they give off a mysterious and evil vibe, right?
Now let's take care of her body. I'm adding a soft brown contouring and blushing to the belly, knees and neck with chalk pastels, and a fade to green on her legs. I like when motifs are repeated in the design. It looks like you know what you're doing. So, to tell you that I know what I'm doing, I'm painting leaves on her feet to mimic the ones on her face. Green hands seemed like too much, so I added a texture that reminds me of dried plants or branches. I already chose the color of the yarn at the beginning of this video, now I have to prepare it. I'm brushing it with a pet brush and flattening it with a hair straightener. When I have the wefts done, I can start gluing them to the skull. I'm starting from the back and moving to the front in a circular fashion. At this point, I remembered I wanted a ponytail, but it's a bit too late for that, so change of plans. I left space for the bangs, and the rest is going to be divided in half to form 2 space buns. I'm gluing the wefts in the same direction as the loose hair, but having in mind that I'm going to turn them to the other side later. Then I'm adding a parting weft, and when the glue is dry, I set it to the other side. When I have both sides of the head done, I can add the bangs. I'm starting with the same brown color, but the closer I get to the top, the more light yarn I use. Now everything is dry and I can set it a little bit with heat. Space buns didn't really work out, so I'm doing the only thing I ever do to doll's hair. maybe except curling them, I braid them. Yarn hair is pretty short, so to extend the braids, I'm adding loose yarn to the braid. I have to admit, it's not my finest work, but it's going to be tied into a bun, so the ugly parts won't be noticeable anyway. The bangs can't be so long, so I'm trimming it very carefully with scissors and thinning the ends with an X-Acto knife. Flora has very long hair, and to make it with yarn you have to do hair extensions. I saw it once made by Hextion in his Fluttershy video, but I'll make it less spectacular. This is essentially the same way how we do ponytails or animal tails, but instead of going around a piece of wire or yarn, I'm doing it in 2D. The other side needs some wefts as well, and when everything is dry, I can glue the extension under her real hair.
Since sacrificing the blender, I have to admit that I needed it in the kitchen, so I had to buy another one. That made me want to do another clay project to justify the sacrifice. I bought some clay softener as well, so I should have an easier time making this clay workable. After blitzing it to pieces, I have some workable clay, so I started testing out what flowers were reasonably easy to make and I liked the look of. I narrowed it down to these two types and started a whole day of mass production. For the simple ones, I start my making. I make many typos when I write. I start by making small balls of clay and flattening them between my thumb and index finger. I curl them a little bit and plop them on the metal pin. Easy enough. For the bigger and detailed flowers, I make the same petal but put it on my finger on the opposite hand and add texture using a needle. It seems like nothing, but it increases the production time significantly. Then I stack them on the pin again and add them to my little flower garden. It's mere seconds to you guys, but making the flowers took me a whole day. But it was worth it.
The tradition must continue, so these flowers need some spicing up, so I painted them to bring up the detail. Before I make more decorations, I want to finally take care of the wings. I'm painting them pink to match the flowers and adding a darker fade so they are more spooky than fairy-like. I don't want the wings to be too busy because the dress is going to have a lot of details. That's why I chose only one color, black, and I'm painting a delicate vein line pattern on each wing on both sides. I covered them with 2 coats of matte acrylic varnish to protect the paint from chipping, but the paint on the joints is still fragile. I had a few days to come up with a good way of placing the wings on the doll, and we're going our usual way, and it means magnets. Honestly, it's better than BJD joining because I can take off the wings anytime I want. I'm still using a thick wire and a thin elastic as this combo holds the pose pretty well. I'm adding 3 small magnets with hot glue. I have noticed that when the magnet is extended a bit from the wings, it works better with the doll's hair. 2 little holes at the back were worthless, so I enlarged them into one big cave that I filled with hot glue and tinfoil so the magnet has something to lay on. For now, our doll is just a plant lady dressed in black, and we need to spookify her. There's no Halloween without one of these two, pumpkins or skulls. And I'm choosing skulls today. I'm sculpting animal skulls out of white polymer clay, trying to go for a blend of realistic and stylized. Real skulls are not super spooky to me, so I'm giving them angry or evil expression. When I'm sculpting something for the first time, I always use references, as I believe there's no shame in looking at something while sculpting, painting, drawing, or creating in general. References people references, as KP Creation says. I'm using acetone to smooth the imperfections, but I don't really mind cracks or creases as these are going to be old skulls covered in plants. I ended up with 3 bird skulls, 2 cat skulls, 3 deer or something similar skulls, and some random bones. I painted them brown for an aged look and started gluing them to the dress. I'm also adding a lot of dried flowers and leaves and also the pink flowers that Barb sculpted. As a last detail, I added a lot of black opalescent half pearls. She still had naked torso and we can't release a female doll like that. Because of the wings, she can't have a sewn top, so I'm going to glue some of these dried flowers. I painted them purple, but it was not fitting the splendor of details we've got on the bottom part of the dress. I love decorating things and I couldn't resist adding flowers and pearls as a top. Then I made a hairpin from the leftover bird skull and she's ready.
This is how she turned out. I am really happy with the direction we took with this doll. At first, I felt like she needed to be green and everything was pointing towards a more poison ivy-esque style. But Alex reminded me that in the original Winx transformation, it was Layla that had the green outfit and Flora had a pink one, so I feel like this was a great decision to keep the pink palette. As mentioned in the beginning, this video is part of the annual Halloween mega collaboration. So make sure to indulge yourself in amazing repaint videos from our friends. In alphabetical order, Dolly Pop, HLE Crafts, Harley's Dollhouse, Hexchen, His Name is Akin, Jackie O, Kyra's Workshop, Moonlight Jewel, The Doll Fairy, The Dolly Geek, and last but not least, Valkyrie's World.
Which Winx character should we turn into a crafted fairy next? Let us know in the comments down below.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram for some sneak peeks and subscribe for future visits. What? We will visit you at night. Apparently. Make sure to follow us on Instagram for some sneak peeks and subscribe for future videos. Have an enchanted day and we'll see you next time. Bye!